If you're watching this right now, chances are something inside you feels off, like you're awake, but not really living. Maybe it's that Sunday night feeling that never quite goes away. The one that convinced you in your 20s that you'd figure it all out by 30, and now, well, here we are. Look, that gap you feel between where you thought you'd be and where you actually are. Psychologists call it the expectation gap. And according to researcher Oliver Sheldon, it's one of the leading drivers of midlife dissatisfaction across the Western world. So if you've ever woken up one day and realized you've been drifting through years on autopilot, zoning out in meetings, scrolling through other people's highlight reels, wondering where the time went, this video is for you. Here's what's important: you're not lazy, you're not broken, and you're definitely not alone. Studies suggest up to 60% of adults report feeling directionless at some point. You're literally in the statistical majority. And here's the good news. You don't need a dramatic life overhaul, a glowing epiphany at 3 a.m., or some polished 10-year master plan gathering dust in your notes app. What you actually need is one simple principle that most people completely overlook. And it's so small it almost feels insulting at first. It comes from a line in James Clear's Atomic Habits. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Translation: tiny daily upgrades beat massive rare efforts every single time. Stick with me here, because over the next 10 minutes I'm going to show you exactly how that one principle can quietly drag you out of the fog you've been stuck in. We'll start with why your brain actually sabotages you when life feels meaningless. And no, it isn't a character flaw, it's wiring you can work around. Then I'll show you the exact make it better method I used to rebuild my own life after a stretch where I genuinely couldn't tell you what I cared about anymore. And finally, I'll give you a dead simple action plan you can start tonight. No quitting your job, no moving cities, no dramatic gestures required. But before we get into any of that, I want to share a tiny moment from my own life that completely changed how I think about purpose. And it happened the night before a really important day. I told myself that I needed an extra hour that morning. No alarm, no backup plan, just a quiet intention. And somewhere around 4 a.m. my eyes popped open, fully alert, fully awake. And that moment, that tiny moment, is exactly the kind of internal shift that turns a directionless person into someone with real quiet momentum. Let's break down how it works. Now here's the wild part. That moment wasn't a fluke. According to research out of Harvard, simply having a clear sense of purpose has been linked to better sleep and sharper alertness. When you hold a strong purpose in your mind long enough, it seeps into your subconscious. Like ink dropping into still water. Slowly, your biology starts cooperating. You wake up early without an alarm. You focus without forcing it. As James Clear writes in Atomic Habits, your habits shape your identity. But here's the catch. Purpose has to be built on what you need, not just what you want. Needs are concrete. Wants often feel foggy. Knowing what you need gives your brain a target. And once your brain has a target, motivation stops being something you chase. It becomes something that chases you. Think about it like a sat-nav system in a London black cab. You punch in the destination and suddenly every turn has meaning. Without that destination, you're just driving in circles, burning fuel, going nowhere. Purpose is what tells your brain which turns matter. Psychologists call this self-determination theory. The idea that autonomy and purpose are core human needs, not luxuries. When those needs are met, your internal world reorganizes itself. Actions that used to feel forced start feeling obvious. That's the quiet magic most people miss. They're trying to motivate themselves with hype and energy. But real motivation is structural. Build the right internal structure, and the right actions stop being a willpower problem. They become a default setting. And that default setting is what makes you wake up at 4 a.m. without an alarm, ready before the world even asks you to be. So if you've been wondering why some people just seem to have gut, that internal engine, it's not luck, it's architecture. And the beautiful thing is, that architecture is something you can start building tonight. One decision at a time. Stay with me. Because next we're going to look at why so many people, even high achievers, still feel completely lost. And it might surprise you. So why does this happen? Why do so many of us feel completely adrift, even when life looks fine on paper? Here's a stat that might shock you. A 2024 Pew survey found nearly 60% of American adults feel they're living their lives on autopilot. Let that sink in. And here's the part that surprises most people. Feeling lost isn't just for the unemployed or the lonely. It quietly haunts high achievers too. Think about the hedge fund manager who makes 7 figures but secretly hates Mondays. The stay-at-home parent who hasn't read a book for pleasure in a decade. Or the London lawyer who vacations in Bali twice a year and still feels empty on the flight home. Sound familiar? Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, said it best: anhedonia. The inability to feel pleasure is a key sign of feeling lost, even when life looks successful. Frankl wrote in his book Man's Search for Meaning that without purpose, even the most comfortable life feels pointless. He proved it in a concentration camp. That emptiness doesn't just hit young people. I've personally met men and women in their 40s and 50s who still feel completely stuck. And there's a cruel twist. The older you get, the harder it becomes to break free. Because stability creates its own kind of inertia. It's Newton's first law: an object at rest stays at rest. Your life keeps drifting in the same direction unless something interrupts the pattern. But here's the truly dangerous part. It's not just the discomfort that builds. It's the quiet erosion of confidence and self-worth underneath. You stop believing you deserve better. You start accepting scraps because you've forgotten what a full plate actually feels like. Harvard psychologist Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar calls this the tyranny of should. The gap between the life you think you're supposed to live and the one you actually want. When should runs your life, nothing you achieve feels earned. Nothing feels alive. That's the silent epidemic no one's talking about. So if any of this resonates with you, good. That means you're awake. And being awake is exactly where the shift begins. Being awake is the first step. Now let's talk about the trap most people fall straight back into. It's the drift trap. And it's the reason so many smart, capable people wake up at 40 feeling like they missed their own life. The easy path looks like this: commute to work, come home, scroll your phone, repeat. Sound familiar? It's not painful, it's numbing. And numbness, my friend, is the real enemy, not sadness, not failure, numbness. Researchers call this hedonic adaptation. You chase comfort, your brain adjusts, and the comfort stops registering. You need more of it just to feel normal. This is why the people who feel the deepest regret later in life are usually the ones who chose comfort the longest. They hit snooze on life over and over. Then one Tuesday morning they look up and think, wow, my life is unbearably boring. And there's nothing to be proud of, nothing you built, nothing you chose. Just years that floated by. That moment, when you finally realize you've been living a life you never wanted, is one of the most painful crises a person can face. Psychologists sometimes call it a midlife crisis, but that's just a label. The real name for it is the bill for decades of drifting. Drifting without intention is like being a leaf on the water. The current takes you wherever it wants. You don't choose the destination. Sure, you might get lucky. The river could carry you somewhere beautiful. But most of the time, you'll end up somewhere you never chose. Author Seneca said it 2,000 years ago. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The drift feels safe, but it's the most expensive choice you'll ever make. And the worst part, you don't feel the cost while you're drifting. You only feel it when it's too late to pretend the bill isn't yours. So how do you escape the drift trap before it collects on you? That's exactly what we're covering next. So how do you climb out without seeing the top? You don't aim for the summit. You aim for the next foothold. Think of your life like rock climbing. Slippery holds, steep walls. Without a grip, you can't reach higher ground. Here's the mistake most people make. They stare at the top of the cliff and freeze. The future feels too vast to climb toward. Psychologists call this future overwhelm. When the gap between where you are and where you want to be feels too massive to even attempt. Your grip has to come from the present. Not next year, not next month. Right now, this moment. Look at your life today. Find one thing, just one, that you could make slightly better. Then do it. James Clear calls this the principle of atomic habits. Tiny changes that compound into remarkable results over time. When you make one thing better, your life becomes slightly clearer. That clarity becomes your next foothold. Then you improve another thing. And another. Small gains stack up like rungs on a ladder you didn't know you were building. Author Robin Sharma put it perfectly. Small daily improvements are the key to staggering long-term results. You won't notice the progress day to day. The climb feels slow, invisible, almost. But one day you'll pause, look back, and realize you've climbed farther than you ever imagined. All from tiny present moment improvements. No epiphany required, no 10-year plan needed. Just one foothold at a time. That's the whole secret, and it has a name. The Make It Better principle. So what's the one thing in your life right now that you could make better? Hold that thought. We're going deeper next. Now here's where it gets interesting. That tiny upgrade. It rarely stays tiny. It pulls a chain reaction behind it. Start with something embarrassingly simple. Your appearance. Notice one thing. Maybe your skin, maybe your haircut. Make it better. Walk into a salon. Ask a barber what actually suits your face shape. Buy a cleanser. Use it for 30 days. That's it. There's a reason HR departments in New York and London invest in image consultants. First impressions quietly shape every opportunity that follows. When you look more put together, people treat you differently. They listen a little longer. They introduce you a little wider. Opportunities that were always there. Client meetings, introductions, after-work conversations suddenly become visible. They were never blocked. You just weren't being shown them. Dr. Amy Cuddy's research at Harvard showed that within seconds of meeting you, people have already decided your competence and trustworthiness. Looking sharper simply gets you past that filter. And here's the deeper truth. Life is constantly pushing you in some direction, whether you choose it or not. The only real question is whether you're drifting with it or steering. Upgrading yourself is grabbing the wheel. Think of it as compound interest, but for your life. James Clear calls this the aggregation of marginal gains in atomic habits. 1% better 50 times a day. That 1% doesn't look like much on a Tuesday. But run it for a year. You've quietly become a different person. You'll start attracting things you never expected. A conversation at a coffee shop in Manchester. A DM from someone in Austin. A referral you didn't ask for. Sometimes those unexpected things reveal a path you'd never have found by sitting still. You couldn't have planned them. You only earned them by becoming slightly better. Tony Robbins says it simply. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. So even the smallest upgrade changes how you do everything else. So pick one foothold, make it better. Then watch the doors start appearing. Because you finally look like someone worth opening them for. And once that door starts opening, you don't just find better things. You start finding hidden parts of yourself you never knew were there. Take travel. Most people book a package tour and call it a holiday. But what if you plan the whole thing yourself? Research the flights, book the hotel yourself, build the itinerary from scratch. Don't outsource the whole experience. That tiny upgrade in ownership can quietly flip a switch. You may discover you actually love the planning more than the trip itself. And that matters, because psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying a flow. And he found that the activities we enjoy most are the ones we choose to invest in deeply. Maybe travel planning isn't your dream career, but maybe it becomes a meaningful part of how you spend your time, money, and energy. From there, doors keep opening. You might start thinking about hospitality, tourism, or even running tours professionally. One small make it better choice. And suddenly you've stumbled onto a life direction you never would have found by sitting still. Think of someone in London who started a weekend walking, tour side hustle just because they enjoyed planning city breaks. 5 years later, it's their full-time business. That wasn't a grand plan. That was one foothold made better, followed by another. The direction revealed itself along the way. And the same principle applies whether you're in Manchester, or middle management. Curiosity rewarded with action is how people find their way. Even Marie Curie once said, "I was taught that the way of progress was neither swift nor easy. The path doesn't appear all at once. It reveals itself step by step, and only to the people actually moving their feet." So the next time you feel stuck in your loop, work, home, phone, sleep, repeat. Break it in one small way. Pick the smallest, weirdest curiosity. Don't sit around waiting for a perfect awakening. It may never come. And if you wait your whole life for it, you'll waste your whole life waiting. And here's a truth most people don't want to hear. Most of us are chasing dramatic, headline-worthy changes, while quietly ignoring the small ones that actually move the needle. It's almost a mental disease. We tell ourselves, why bother fixing the small stuff? But here's the twist. We're usually not even doing the small stuff well in the first place. When your ambition is massive but your daily execution is zero, the math is brutal. Big dreams plus zero action equals zero, sometimes even less than zero. Meanwhile, the people who quietly make progress, they're not posting motivational quotes. They're fixing small habits, tweaking small routines, and answering life's small questions one at a time. James Clear nailed this in Atomic Habits. He called habits the compound interest of self-improvement. 1% better every day doesn't sound like much, but the math is staggering over a year. That tiny daily edge, stacked day after day, turns you into 37 times better by year one. Not because of one heroic moment, because of thousands of small boring ones. The British cycling team proved this better than anyone. Before 2003, they'd won a single Tour de France in their entire history. Then they started chasing 1% improvements in everything. Better sleep, better nutrition, tiny ergonomic tweaks on the bike. Individually, each change was laughably small. Collectively, they won 7 Tour de France titles in 8 years. That's the part we keep getting wrong. We think transformation has to look like a movie montage. Real transformation looks like a Tuesday afternoon you barely remember. Think of life as an endless library. The universe keeps handing you small questions, and every one you answer becomes the next rung on your ladder. Nobody knows how high that ladder goes. You won't know either, not at first. But you'll never climb anything at all if you refuse to take the first small step. Here's what the dreamers get backwards. They want to see the whole staircase before they'll climb. The climbers just climb, and the staircase reveals itself as they go. Big dreams aren't bad, but they need a runway. And that runway is built entirely out of small, unsexy, unglamorous improvements you make this week. Skip the small stuff and the dream never gets clearance for takeoff. Lean into the small stuff and suddenly, the dream has somewhere to land. So stop dismissing the small. Start honoring it. One boring, ordinary, unsexy improvement at a time. That's how quiet lives turn into extraordinary ones. So here's your starting point. And yes, it's brutally simple. Look at your life right now, just one thing. Could you make it better? Maybe it's your sleep. Maybe it's the way you eat. Maybe it's how you show up at work when you'd rather be invisible. Pick that one thing. Then go make it better. Not next Monday, not after the holidays. Today. You might fail the first time. Probably will, honestly. And that's completely fine. Psychologist Angela Duckworth calls this grit. The stubborn willingness to keep showing up after the stumble. Try again, try a third time. The whole point is that small improvements belong entirely to you. Do them in the morning. Do them at night. On a Tuesday in 3 months. You're in complete control. There's no pressure to be perfect. There's no rush. Small wins quietly create small moments of clarity. And here's the part most people miss. Clarity compounds just like progress does. James Clear hammers this home in Atomic Habits. One clear moment leads to another. One small win unlocks the next decision, and suddenly the fog lifts. You'll start to see what the next foothold looks like. Then you grab it, then the next one. Then the next. Stop waiting for the perfect plan. Stop drifting through another year on autopilot. Start with one thing, make it better. Then watch what quietly unfolds in the weeks ahead. Because the life you're looking for isn't waiting at some distant finish line. It's being built quietly in the choices you make today. One boring improvement at a time. That's the whole secret. And it's been right in front of you all along. If you're feeling lost right now, hear me clearly. You are not broken. You are not behind. And you are absolutely not alone. Researchers at the University of Bath found that nearly a third of adults report feeling directionless at some point in their lives. It's one of the most human experiences there is. So if it feels that way, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means you're paying attention. And that's actually the first sign you're ready to change. But here's the secret nobody tells you on those self-help podcasts. You don't actually need to know where you're going. You just need to start moving. Any direction that makes today slightly better than yesterday is the right direction. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Quality begins with what you do today. Make it better. Let the clarity come later. Let the opportunities reveal themselves later. Let the passion quietly find you while you're busy improving. This is exactly what psychologist Angela Duckworth calls grit. In her book of the same name, Passion and Perseverance for Long-Term Goals, built one tiny brick at a time. Think about that next time you're scrolling. One brick, one choice, one slightly better day. That's how a life is actually built. Before this video ends, I want to ask you something real. What's one thing, just one, you're going to make better this week? Drop it in the comments below. Reading your goals genuinely makes my day. And you'll be surprised how much putting it into words commits you to it. Researchers call this implementation intention. Simply naming when and how you'll do something dramatically raises the odds you'll follow through. So commit out loud. Tell a stranger on the internet. Make it real. Then watch what happens over the next 30 days. If this video helped you see your life even a little differently, subscribe to Learn with Leo. We turn psychology into tools you can actually use. Your life is already waiting for you. Not someday now. Go make it better. And I'll see you in the next one.